Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 77.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
Hi there. My name is Toby Jenkins, and this is the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. Now, this is the show for people who love marketing on the web. We take you behind the scenes of real-life experiments to share the good and the bad and the ugly. Now, in this show, I wanted to share with you my interview with Waverley Stanley. Now, Waverley is the founding director of Yalari, which is a non-profit that is dedicated to empowering children, and particularly Indigenous children, through education. He's an incredible guy. He's the state finalist in the Australian of the Year awards. He also happens to be an amazing storyteller, so I really hope you enjoy listening to his stories as much as I did. We talk about a lot of things in today's show. Why he started Yalari in the first place. We talk about how he has built it up from a kitchen table operation that placed 3 students in boarding schools years ago, and to today, which is now it's 28 employees and more than 170 students placed in schools, boarding schools all around Australia. He has an incredible philosophy of inclusion, and he talks about how he's created a Yalari family that has really helped him through a huge crisis back in 2012, and also helped obviously to spread the word about Yalari and to help him grow that organisation. He also shares a final secret, which is how not to cry, which is a classic. This show is brought to you by our book, Web Marketing That Works, and specifically the bonus 33 free templates that go with it. You can download them from bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Let's get started. So Waverley, thank you so much for joining me on the Web Marketing That Works podcast this morning. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the Toby and the invitation. Happy to be here.
Yeah, look, there's so much that I'd like to talk about. Obviously, we were introduced by my sister Marty, who's working for Yalari, and she's sort of shared so much about the organisation and your personal journey as well that I really wanted to share it with our listeners too. So before we sort of jump into your journey and Yalari's journey as well, my first question that I'd like to ask is sort of what excites you, what fires you up to get into your day?
I suppose it's a habit, I think, more than anything there, Toby. The first thing I really want to do every day is read 20 minutes of a book. So currently at the moment I'm reading Money Masters the Game by Tony Robbins.
Oh, really? I just finished that a little while ago, actually.
Sorry?
I just finished that a while ago, actually.
Well, there you go.
It's a good read.
So my wife Lou and I attended a Date with Destiny workshop with Tony Robbins for 6 days here on the Gold Coast that my mother-in-law and father-in-law bought us as a gift. And
fantastic.
So constantly it's about, the thing that excites me the most is about constantly trying to keep improving yourself as an individual. And I think that's, the new experiences of every day, I think more than anything, Toby, is, the lessons of each day. What am I going to learn today? Because I'd like to find out, it's a bit like the quote, Rolling Stone gathers no moss. Mm. And we've just got to keep trying to be the best person that we can be. So all I'm trying to be is just be the best Waverley Stanley. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's an awesome goal though, Waverley. I love it. That's really cool. So yeah, if you can, Waverley, can you share a bit about your journey? Because it's a fascinating one, kind of where you started and how you got to where you are today, really, which I guess covers quite a bit of territory for you. But if you don't mind sharing that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. No worries. So I'm originally from Mergen, which is a little small country town 3 hours northwest of Brisbane. So I grew up in Mergen. I was born in Rocky. And then I'm the eldest of 7 children. My mum and dad were born and raised in Cherbourg, an Aboriginal community 5 kilometres out of Mergen. And I went to primary school in Mergen. And then in grade 7, unbeknownst to me, my grade 7 teacher, Mrs. Rosemary Bishop, was sending my school results and some of my stuff that I've been working on to Toowoomba Grammar School. And I was school captain in my final year of primary school, and Mrs. Bishop had some contacts at Toowoomba Grammar School, and then she made arrangements with Mr. Dent, the headmaster at Toowoomba Grammar School, for me to have an interview. And subsequently I got a scholarship to Toowoomba Grammar School. I was the only Aboriginal boy at Toowoomba Grammar School for 5 years, from 1980 to 1984.
Wow.
And my experience at grammar was the best because I got a lot of good mates. I went back for my 30-year reunion last year. And that experience was, I suppose, a catalyst for me to start Yalari with my wife, Lou, back in 2005. We've celebrated 10 years only a couple of weeks ago on April the 13th.
Congratulations. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this year as well, actually.
Oh, that's great, Toby. And I keep saying to our children, I think, is the definition of the best job is just doing something that you love, getting paid to do it. And my opportunity at Toowoomba Grammar School was a catalyst in enabling us to start Yalari, but more so to give other Indigenous children. When I was at Toowoomba Grammar School, the only time I seen any Aboriginal people was when I went down the street at shopping on a Friday afternoon at Toowoomba, or when my family or extended family visited. So that opportunity of having a great education at a wonderful school set us up for Yalari. And then when I was a 12-year-old boy at Toowoomba Grammar School when I first started, I was always wondering why there wasn't any other Aboriginal children or Torres Strait Islander children with me. So that's where it started. And then, our journey has been about adding value to these young children that come onto our program at, say, 12 years of age and graduate. So we started with 3 children in 2006, being Toowoomba Grammar School and the Glennie School being our foundation school.
Yep.
And then currently today we've got 177 children in 28 schools around Australia.
Wow.
And in Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria, ACT and Western Australia. And then we have 109 children that have graduated. So we'll have 35 children graduate this year from year 12. So
fantastic. Wow, that's a lot of lives. You've had a big impact on there.
Yeah, definitely, Toby. But I think the biggest thing is we've said to our children is that I remind them the difference between them right now in this generation and that of their grandparents or their great-grandparents is just educational opportunities.
Yep.
And you've got to take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves. But I'd like to think that and I keep saying to our children, it's no use you getting a deadliest education at a boarding school and then you don't do anything with it. That's one thing. But the second thing is if we're going to instigate a generation of change for young people, especially Indigenous young people that I'm wanting to influence, the generational change will be when a young man finishes here at, say in Sydney, at that Sunny Nations Review in Sydney, that he finishes, he goes off, works, has a life, and then when it's time for his son to go to boarding school or high school, his first choice will be his old high school, which will be Riverview. Yeah. Then we've changed the generation.
Yeah, that's a long-term plan there, Waverley. I'm impressed. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is, Toby. Life is a marathon. All the good, bad, and indifferent stuff that happens in your life, whether personally or whether as a career, I think that makes you the individual. So we've had a journey for Yalari, for instance, and also a journey for myself as an individual and as a man. I have 4 children, my 3 daughters and a son. I've got a 27-year-old, 25-year-old, 21-year-old, and a 19-year-old, 3 girls and a boy. And so, I'm a father, I'm a husband. This is my second marriage with my wife, Lou. I'm a business owner. We started Yalari with our own money, with our own cars, put our own money into it at the start. And, we've got 28 staff around Australia. We have 12 staff here on the Gold Coast. But I think it's just about our adding value to the children that we are supporting. But it's also, as Australians, just being very thankful for the lives we've got here in this country.
We are very fortunate, aren't we?
And definitely, Toby, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. We live in a country where we've got so many opportunities, but I want our children and all Australians, for us to be judged by the quality and caliber of you as a person, and not the color of your skin or your background or your heritage in any way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Waverley, if we could just rewind the clock back a little bit. So,
Yep, sorry.
No, that's okay. So you went to Toowoomba Grammar, and then after Toowoomba Grammar, you went into university and studying, presumably, and then sort of, I guess, that transition between high school to actually, the decision and the catalyst to start Yalari?
All right. So when I left Toowoomba Grammar School, on 1984 in October, I think November. I finished grammar on a Thursday. On a Monday morning, I walked into the meatworks at Mergen, and I started a full-time job there at Mergen. But prior to that, I did a public service exam while I was at Toowoomba Grammar School. And I then subsequently October 21st, 1985, I started as a admin assistant at the Australian Taxation Office. So from October 1984 to October 1985, I worked at the meatworks as a 17-year-old young man working in a world where, I was getting maybe $800 a week as a young person to work there. So I made sure. So the thing for me, Toby, was being on scholarship at Toowoomba Grammar School. My parents had to pay $125 a term, and I, being the eldest of 7 children, so I didn't want to burden my mum and dad. So I used to come home every holidays, and I would work. I would work doing peanut chipping, cotton chipping, working on a farm, going into the meatworks. I'd be picking up, fat in the meatworks. And I made sure that every time I went back to Toowoomba Grammar School after holidays, I had $125 in my pocket. That's all I wanted. Mm. And the other one I wanted was $1.50, so I could buy a iced chocolate or an iced coffee or a Big Mac down at McDonald's. That's all I wanted.
Yep.
And it's pretty simple. I'm a simple man.
Yeah.
And that's all I wanted. So that's where I started with my career. And then I worked for the taxation department for 10 years, 9 years. I worked for Social Security. Then I worked for Abernon Childcare, working with street children in Brisbane. I've always been passionate about education, and then I started with Education Queensland in 1996, and then I worked there for 10 years. I went to a workshop at Magnetic Island off Townsville there, Toby. We were talking about the same issues with Indigenous education, and a lot of the children that I was working with in Education Queensland, so my role was a community education counsellor and a district community education counsellor, working with young people, and I was mainly working with children that were being suspended or excluded. And prior to that, while I was working, I was always wanting to work with children about goal setting and self-improvement, and so I developed my own little programs about that. And then when I went to Magnetic Island in 2000, it was a 5-day workshop, and after 2 days, a gentleman came out from Education Queensland, and all he talked about was the negative issues and the negative stuff that's going on for Indigenous children. And I got really challenged by that, and I said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And the bureaucracy of working for a big organisation and big wheels grind slowly in government departments. And I made a decision then that I would resign. I jumped in my car after a 2 days workshop. I went back to my motel, back to my room, grabbed my bag, jumped on the ferry from Magnetic Island to Townsville, picked up my car and drove and I worked at Education Queensland at Taple and Johnson District Office in Atherton at the time. And I drove back in September of that year. And I went into the office, that was on a Saturday, I went into the office on the Monday and I said to my line manager, I'm going to resign at the end of this year. I've had enough of working for education. And he said, oh no, don't resign, just take leave without pay. And if it doesn't work out for you, you can come back and work for us again. And I said, no, I've only got 2 choices, either succeed or succeed. And that's what I did. So I resigned in December of that year, but prior to that, I took a week's holiday to attend a workshop called an Enterprise Development Workshop, which was run by First Australians Business, and it was funded by The Body Shop in Melbourne, and Graham Wise is the gentleman who owned The Body Shop here in Australia. And so they funded, Indigenous people that wanted to go into small, medium enterprises, and it was only for people up to the age of 30, and I was 31 at that time, and they allowed me in because after I left Magnetic Island, I bought myself a laptop, and every night while working for Education Queensland, I would start writing out a business plan and my first business was Pathway to Success. That's what I called it. So I wanted to do personal development workshops for children in schools and also around Australia. And so I did that workshop, and subsequent to that, I met some people there that following when I resigned Education Queensland in December of 2000, I resigned, and then the following year, I facilitated for the Department of Family and Community Services in Canberra, the National Youth Roundtable in Canberra, the National Indigenous Youth Leadership Group. I became a presenter for First Australians Business, talking about Indigenous people going into their own business. And that's how I started. So I had my own business, Pathway to Success, from 2000 to 2005. And then I met Lou along the way in 2003 because Lou was working. That's my wife, Lou.
Yeah.
And then from there, Toby, we started Yalari in 2005 then.
Wow.
So that's been a snapshot of my life, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so what was the sort of trigger then to finally set up Yalari?
I suppose the trigger was that, I kept hold of a dream that I always wanted to have to implement when I was at a stage that I could do it. I was 38 at the time when we started Yalari in 2005. I had black hair, whereas now it's a bit of salt and pepper at the moment. So more salt because there's a lot more grey there. So the catalyst really was staying true to the goal that I set many, many years ago as a 12-year-old boy, that I wanted to do something to help other Indigenous children. I'm very goal-oriented on that level, and I was passionate about helping my own people, and that's what I wanted to do. So when we started Yalari, putting our own money, but it was the belief from my wife, Lou, that she believed in what I was going to do and what I wanted to do and we did it together. You know, we started Yalari in our house at Southport, where our corporate uniform then was, board shorts and thongs, or we'd jump out of bed of a morning in our boxers and shirt, walk downstairs, work all day, work all night, and then jump back into bed again.
Yep.
And so that's how we started. So, it's a bit like in that Paul Kelly song, from little things, big things grow.
Yeah.
But I just think, I found a purpose in my life to help other Indigenous children, and I think I just want to follow through now, where it's not only helping Indigenous young people, it's just helping all young people to be the best person, and that's what I really want to do right now.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, as you say, it must be hugely satisfying to see it grow from, your first 3 students to 177.
Yeah, it is, Toby, but I think it's a journey that our children have. It's riding the waves with each of these children. You celebrate their highs, and you also celebrate their lows, when they're homesick, and you have to be a disciplinarian with them then too. I play a dad type role with each of these children. Mm. But I also, have the tough love with the children too, to know that, I believe in every one of them. But at the end of the day, is that, your journey is an individual journey, but you have to do something with this education. Yeah. And from a succession planning point of view, I have a set plan when I'd like to have a young person from Yalari graduate and be the CEO of Yalari. Like I said to all of our staff, a lot of our children will be employed in Yalari. And we've had children that have been employed, coming in being receptionists for us over the years. Yep. I've got a lot of young people that are young leaders now that come and volunteer at our camps. So our whole process is about handing the baton on to other young Indigenous people that are going to make a contribution in this country. And I'd like to think that they would contribute and become leaders in business, in education. My dream is to see the first Indigenous Prime Minister in this country, and if we've got a hand in helping them in some way, shape or form, well, I'd like to think that we could do something on that level. Yeah, I love it. Mm. Can you talk us through how you have grown, your organisation from your backyard to, your kitchen table to where it is now, employing 28 people and that number of students? What has been, which I guess is marketing at its core, how do you grow an organisation? So I'm really interested to hear sort of what that process and the development of that process has been across the course of the years. I think the whole process, more than anything there, Toby, is that people believing in the ideal of what we're trying to do. So I think it's about saying to people that we have an opportunity to contribute in some way, shape or form to say, our present, our past has brought us to the present. What we do in the present will determine our future. So from that aspect, I'm asking, so people have come on board with us, volunteers, sponsors, donors, supporters, individuals, foundations, philanthropic bodies, organisations, schools. They're all believing in the one ideal that, we can make a difference together. Mm. And I think that's what we've done as an organisation, where I really want to stop this comparison between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people. Yeah. I want to stop the rhetoric that's going on in this country right now. And the one rhetoric that I really do want to stop, personally myself there, Toby, is the word disadvantaged. It rolls off the tongue from the leaders, from Tony Abbott, and the many leaders and the many documents that you read about Aboriginal people. When they equate Indigenous, they also equate disadvantage. And I said at a conference the other day in Melbourne that, are our children disadvantaged because they go to boarding school? And I pose that question, and I want people to say, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep saying it over and over and over and over and over and over and over, you then believe it. So I want people, and I want our Indigenous children especially, I want them to get that disadvantage, because I feel I'm not disadvantaged. I know who I am. I know what my core values are. I know what my beliefs are. I know where I'm going. I'm not disadvantaged. I've had a blessed life in regards to going to Toowoomba Grammar School. I've had a blessed life from growing up in a country town. I come from the bush. I've travelled this country. I've travelled the world. I've had a blessed life, but I'm not disadvantaged, and I will not accept anyone telling me any further that I'm disadvantaged. And I'm saying to our children, I'm saying to our supporters out there, we will no longer accept the word disadvantage associated with Yalari, associated with Indigenous people. Mm. And that's what I want to change. And I've rung the ministers, both Tony Abbott, Nigel Scullion, and also the Education Minister, Christopher Pyne. And I've made appointments with them in Canberra to say, righto, we are going to stop this, and it's going to start from the top. And you are going to listen to us, because we're going to now say this together. If you want to change this country and for Australia to grow up and be the country of equity right across the board, not only in a superficial form, be equitable right across the board and value people for who they are, not where they come from, but to say, we can do this together as Australians, because we've got to stop putting each other down, and especially stop putting Indigenous people down, because the self-fulfilling prophecy is that's all, you start believing that. Mm. And I want to change that.
It's great. I actually saw, I was reading through, just in preparation for our chat today, I was reading through a bit of material that I found online about you, and I saw one of your presentations to a school where you said, challenges can be used as stepping stones and not stumbling blocks. I resonate with that enormously, but that sounds as though that's one of your philosophies in terms of creating the change that you want to see, right?
Yeah, and it's a bit like Gandhi, be the change that you want to see in the world, and be the change that you want to be. But you can't expect to change the world if you don't change yourself. Yeah. And Toby, it's been a journey for us at Yalari. In 2012 we had a fire that we lost everything in a fire down at our office at Oxenford. The only thing that we recovered in that fire was a data projector that was in a camera box and our petty cash box. We lost everything. Wow. We lost our desks, we lost laptops, computers, all our business records, all our student records, paintings, personal stuff. So, that was in 2012. That was on August the 20th, 2012. And I remember my wife and I getting a phone call from the police at 1 o'clock in the morning. And one of my staff, Tanya, took one of our girls who's studying in her third year at University at Gatton campus to be a vet. And Tanya took Kayla, who's from Warrabinda, which is an Aboriginal community 2 hours west of Rockhampton. And they took her to the Gatton campus of the University of Queensland and to have an open day. And Tanya parked my Prado at the back of the office. And unbeknownst to us, underneath us was a kebab shop. And they intentionally, for insurance purposes, started a fire down underneath our office, which subsequently burned 7 or 8 offices and businesses in that complex. Oh boy! So we lost everything in that fire. So coming down, it was a humbling experience on that level. Where that Monday, then the Tuesday morning, I remember running. And I live on top of the mountain at Mount Tamborine. I was running up the hill, and you can't cry when you run, I've found out. And I was very...
That's one way to look at it.
Definitely. Yeah. And I was very, very angry there, Toby, and I screamed out to God, saying, why us? We're good people. Why do this to us? And then a little voice said to me, why not? You can handle this. You can do this. And I remember looking at that moment, I stopped and I started crying, and then I looked across the valley, and I can see where our office was, and then I can see in the distance the Tower of Terror, which is that dream world. Yep. And a little message in my mind came, look beyond the fire, look to the horizon. What is there? And then there was a quote that kept me going through that time when I looked within myself to say, the most important thing, nobody lost their lives. We had a daycare centre down the road beside us with 90 children in it. Boy. And, the fire happened at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was, no little children lost their lives. None of my staff lost their lives, because the police rang my wife because my Prado being parked at the back there, they thought I was in there. Oh boy! And we've never ever slept there, never. Mm. And there's a quote by Martin Luther King that kept me going in that time. And it goes like this: it says, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of challenge and controversy, and in the moments of of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in moments of challenge and controversy. So I'll repeat that again, and I mucked it up. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in moments of challenge and controversy. That is the ultimate measure of a man.
Mm.
And that kept me going. And I know the challenges that we have had as an organization, both individually and as a collective group, are the challenges that stand us in good stead to say to these children, believe in yourself, have a dream, have a goal, but have the courage to do something about it. And then that quote kept me going. And then coming back, and I've had plenty of interviews both on TV and on the radio after the fire. And the thing was, it was just a speed bump. It was just a little speed bump in the journey of Yalari on our road, and that's all it was. It didn't stop us. And I remember saying to my wife Lou, then I said, Auntie, and that's my nickname that I call her. And I said to her, Auntie, family looks after family. Always have, always will. And lo and behold, all the stuff that we have in our office here right now was donated back to us. And we've got an office full of furniture. People donated computers. People donated money to buy us a server. People donated, everything that we've got in this office to us. And we're so very, very grateful. And, you talk about our growth, and I think we've included so many good people that believe in what we're doing. And, in our moment of need, they came to the fore and helped us out on so many levels, both physically, financial, mentally, just helped us on so many levels. And, all because they believe in what we're doing. And I'm so very grateful for that at that time.
I bet. And Waverley, so how do you go about sort of building this idea of family around Yalari? What have you found that has worked really well for you, building the family around your organisation?
I think it's the relationships, treating every person as an individual, accepting their backgrounds, their cultural backgrounds, just being in the moment to say, everybody's got a story, everybody's got a journey that they're on, and everybody's got a skill set that can add value to us as an organisation. And everybody has their own dreams and goals. And I keep saying to our staff, you work for us, but, if there's dreams and goals that you have also, I'd like to think that we can be a stepping stone for you to achieve your own dreams and goals. But I'd like to think that, our staff that are involved with us and the family atmosphere that we give within ourselves is about respecting yourself first and foremost, but it's also then respecting the people that we're being involved in. But it's also then saying that, we can work together for the same common goal of empowering and educating Indigenous children in this country, but all young people.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a powerful goal. Must be incredibly motivating. And I know my sister finds it enormously engaging to be working in your team. Thanks for that too, Waverley.
No worries at all. And Marty's got a story, and then I keep saying to Marty is that, you've lived a life, you've gone overseas. And, the example that I'd like that Marty has, and I said this to her, was, our young people can have another choice. Choices, not chances, determine your destiny. And the destiny for our young people is, you don't have to be like everybody else, get pregnant at 16, 17, 18 years of age. You can have a career. You can travel the world, and you can be true to yourself, but, you can have a baby when you want to later on in life if you want as a young lady. Mm. So in my case, Toby, I became a father at 20. I was married at 21. And I remember my friends at Toowoomba Grammar School, they said to me, Stan, that was my nickname. They said, righto, Stan, we finished school in 1984. We're going to work for 2 years. We're going to save all our money. Then we're going to go backpacking around the world. Okay? That's what we're going to do, Stan. And I had 4 good mates, and I remember them having to ring each of them and saying, 2 years later, I said, I'm sorry, I can't travel and backpack around the world. Is because I'm now a dad, and I apologize that I can't do that. Mm. And I want to say to our young men, don't do as I do as I say, in regards to don't become a father at 20. You can, but I never regret the life that I've got. I never regret becoming a father at 20. I never regret all the challenges of a divorce or a marriage breakdown or anything. I never regret having to pay child support maintenance to my ex-wife and for my 4 children. I don't regret having to, know that all the money that I had to go to child support. I never regret anything in my life because the person that I am today is because of the good, bad, and different stuff that's happened in my life. And I'm very, very thankful for everything. It's a bit like the quote, don't pray for an easier life, pray for a stronger back.
There's actually a book that I don't know. Have you got into Stoicism at all, Waverley?
No, I haven't. Sorry, Toby, no.
There's just there's a great book by a guy called Ryan Holiday that is called The Obstacle is the Way. And it's
the obstacle of the way, is it?
The obstacle is the way.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and he talks about, the fact that he signed a book for me, and in that the preface or, the little note was, may you face many obstacles in life, with the philosophy basically being that, as to overcome one obstacle has deemed that you're worthy for the next, which is, and, often there's so many lessons to be learned and powerful gains to be made by pushing through those challenges as well. So,
yeah, definitely, Toby. And I'm very much at the moment now, I'm wanting to write, a book, but I'm also wanting to write a personal development program for our children, and I've called it My Walkabout. And it's for our children, but it's also for all children. So, I'm wanting to develop a program and to have it out to as many people, or young people especially, around the world. And also from a business context, that I've got some personal goals that I want to achieve. Whereas, last year there, Toby, for instance, I was in debt for many, many, many years of my life, and I'm 47 years of age now. And last year, I don't have any debt. And that was the first time in my life. And then...
Congratulations.
So that was something, but, I don't regret my life in any way, shape or form there, Toby. And as I keep saying is, there are people in my life that, Nelson Mandela, for instance, I've done a lot of reading of his books. I've watched a lot of movies, watched a lot of documentaries, and I had the privilege of going to South Africa, where I undertook a Churchill Fellowship last year to look at boarding school initiatives in South Africa and Tanzania. And I had the opportunity of going to Robben Island and standing in the court and knowing that the long walk to freedom was hidden in the dirt on Robben Island.
Yeah.
I stood at the spot. I stood at I went to the Nelson Mandela Centre of Memory in Johannesburg, and I'm wanting to look at a program out of South Africa that we could utilise here in Australia, and it's called the Nelson Mandela The Champion Within program.
Right.
And so for me as a man, from a personal development point of view, I've had, the likes of the Nelson Mandelas, the Martin Luther Kings, and taken all of their lessons and journey that they had, but customizing it for me as an individual man myself, with my own values, with my own beliefs, with my own goals, with my own purpose in my life, to be the best Waverley Stanley, but also know that from a mentoring point of view, they are also my mentors, even though they're not alive.
Yeah, it's incredible the amount of information, in terms of surrounding yourself with those people, and the books and the documentaries and movies, as you say. There's so much material that we can learn just, that is basically freely available. It's extraordinary. Yeah,
definitely, Toby. And I think we have to, as individuals, we have to continually be challenged, but we also have to continually grow. And then also having, being holistic, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially, socially, academically, and also culturally. That's what we're saying for our children.
Yeah.
And but just be the best you. You don't have to. I don't have to be. I just want to be the best Waverley Stanley. And everybody's got a purpose on this earth, and I really do want to live a life to say, it's about contribution. It's about giving freely. To say, there's a story that, and I want to share this with you. It's about these two men were out crabbing there. About crabbing there, Toby?
Yeah, sure do.
There were these two blokes, an Aboriginal man and a non-Indigenous man. So there was this, so we call Aboriginal people Murrays, and so there was this Murray fella and there was this non-Indigenous man. So, and they were out there crabbing. They set out all their crab pots, and they come back and they pulled in all the crab pots, and they had 2 buckets in their dinghy. And a non-Indigenous man had a lid on his bucket, and his good friend, his Murray fella, he didn't have a lid on his bucket. So they were pulling in these crab pots and chucking the crabs in the pot. And the non-Indigenous man said to the Murray fella, "Hey, brother, how come you don't have a lid on your bucket?" He goes, "Nah, brother. These are Aboriginal crabs." "What do you mean they're Aboriginal crabs? There's no such thing." No, brother, they're Aboriginal crabs. Because every time one crab try and get out, another crab pull him back down. And I've said that analogy to the children then. I said, righto. I say, that's what happens in our communities. That's what happens in society here in Australia with that tall poppy syndrome. And I said, there's two choices you can, and I said, there's another side to this story. You can either be pulling each other down, or I said, yeah, there's two things. You got two choices. You can either be the crab that gets out of that bucket and gives everybody else a hand up, or you can be the crab down underneath, pushing everybody up.
Mm.
The choice is yours. You got three choices. You can either be pulling people down, pushing people up, or giving people a hand up. And I said that to our children. They're the three choices for you as an Indigenous person in this country. What are you going to do to help your fellow man? And not only be the Indigenous person, it'll be you as a young person from some other cultural background, as Australians or just as fellow members within this, humanity, to help someone else. And that's all I want them to do.
Yeah, it's a great guiding philosophy. Waverley, one thing that you've sort of alluded to a couple of times is, your goal setting and your approach and your pathways and the programs that you're building. I'm interested to know, do you have, and you mentioned also that, you aim to do 20 minutes of reading a day. Do you have routines that you follow in terms of, daily routines or morning rituals or any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, one ritual I've always done was having a cup of green tea every morning with my wife, walking our three dogs. That's another ritual. Having a conversation with my wife every morning, Another ritual I do when I'm traveling, the first conversation I have of a morning is with my wife, and the last conversation I have every night is with my wife also. They're little things that I've done. The 20 minutes of reading might be, but sometimes, it might be 3 or 4 hours of reading sometimes.
Mm.
Sometimes, like, yesterday morning, I got up at 1:30 in the morning because I had all these ideas going around in my mind. So I just got up and I just worked around the yard because we were 3.5 acres. And I had put my head torch on and I was loading up my truck, my little ute, and with rubbish and doing stuff downstairs, setting up a gym. And then I sat down on the computer and did some reading. And so, they're little things along the way. I know it's not the most,
No, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in sort of the little things that people do, because so often it's the little things that make a big difference, right? Is that sort of compound, the little pieces of the puzzle that you do regularly that sort of compound over time and dictate habits and ultimately the end result too, I think, is it has a huge sway over it.
Yeah, definitely too, Toby. And the other thing then too is I've got about maybe 110 audio books on my iPod.
Yep.
So whenever I'm traveling, I do a lot of traveling around Australia. So I've got a Toyota Prado that I've done 248,000 kilometres in a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
So
there.
So I do a lot of traveling. So when I'm driving, I usually will listen to an audio book.
Mm.
And I've got a variety of audio books, mainly a lot on autobiographies, a lot on leadership, a lot on personal development.
Any ones that are real standouts for you?
Oh, yeah, Long Walk to Freedom, both volumes with Nelson Mandela.
Mm.
There's an author by the name of Robin Sharma, who's the author of The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Oh, yeah.
Lessons about that. It's about fables. Another one book I do read a lot is Og Mandino, like Anthony Robbins I'm reading right now. Robert Kiyosaki, I've read a lot of his books. Just a lot, John Maxwell on leadership. I've got a lot of books on his, both physical books and also audio books. I've got a lot of, autobiographies of Muhammad Ali. I've got a lot of books on Gandhi, Martin Luther King. I've got a lot of his speeches. So there's a lot of, and then there's a variety of autobiographies from different peoples of all walks of life. I've done Ironman triathlons. I've done 3 of those. I've done 3 or 4 ultra marathons. So also the other things then too is that from a goal setting point of view, I've looked towards doing long stuff where, like an Ironman triathlon race is a 3.8 kilometre swim, 180 kilometre bike ride, and then a 42k marathon.
Mm.
You find out about yourself, challenges every moment. Sometimes you might be running along and you're feeling really, really good, and then all of a sudden you've got somebody dropped a piano on top of your back, and you've got to run with that.
Yeah.
So they're the things that for me as an individual that. They're the little lessons along the way that I've had and also I think more than anything there, Toby, is looking for the good in everything, I think. I'll give you a prime example. I don't deal in politics in regards to black politics or politics in general. There's a lot of history, there's a lot of stuff going on for Indigenous people in this country, and I stay well clear of the negativity that's surrounded Indigenous people. So I just look for the positive things, always have.
Mm.
And that's where I suppose for me is we've all got the journey. We've all had some hardships in our lives, but that doesn't define you. It doesn't make you who you are now, All those lessons along the way defines the person that you are. But at the end of the day, you're wanting to never get to the end of your life saying would have, could have, and should have.
Yeah, agreed. And do you have sort of, aside from, I guess, a life of cultivating, that looking for positivity, is there something that, for instance, I noticed again in just doing some background research, it was that you try not to bother with the media because of, there's so many negative stories in the media. Are there other sort of things that you cultivate in your life so then you can remain focused on the positive?
Yeah, it's a bit like, watching the news, the only good thing is that they say, good evening, and then they tell you how bad the day
is. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's another great book on that.
I don't watch the news anymore, so, if something's bad's happened, someone will tell me about it.
Mm.
And to some extent, I don't really read the papers as much anymore now because sometimes I don't have time to sit down and read it. But the thing for me from a media perspective, or even for us with Yalari, we as an organisation, there's 15 or 16 organisations like ours in Australia, and there's a lot of other organisations that get a lot of accolades and their names are in or their stories are in the Australian or something like that, and which is great. But for me personally it's just like that Nike had Just Do It.
Mm.
And that's all we've done, I've been nominated, and I've said to my staff, I don't want to be nominated for stuff, I don't want the accolades, so this is not what I do it for. I just want to do the work that's in front of me and support Indigenous children, because my accountability as a man, as an Indigenous person, is the support that I give to our children that we're working for. And I say to our staff and all of our people is that the Yalari brand that we have right now, so my brand of Yalari, is about integrity, it is about honesty, it is about openness, it is about being accountable, it is about being responsible. And it's also about being inclusive. So our core values of Yalari is about being inclusive, and everybody that helps us is valued for who they are, their skill set, and what they bring to us as an organisation for the bigger goal of empowering and educating children. Indigenous children in our case with Yalari, but whereas now I would like to think we've got an opportunity to help children. And it's a bit like I realised at a Tony Robbins workshop and it came to me afterwards that, look after the boy or look after the young lady, then you don't have to fix up the man or the woman later on in life. And that's what I want to do right now. I want to develop some resources for our children, and it's a bit like motivation. You just can't get it in one helping.
Yeah.
And I want to support and give strategies and ideas and tools to as many children as possible, that if we can help them right now in their life to have a life of contribution, a life where you set some goals for yourself, but have the courage to do that, we don't have to fix up the children later on, and we don't have to have the intergenerational pain and suffering that our people have had now from generations before.
Mm.
And that's the bigger mantra for me right now, is that as an Indigenous man, I want to help these young people for the young men to be good dads in the future, but to be present dads, not like what I was.
Mm.
Whereas I watched my children grow up, even though I was always their dad, I wasn't present with them 24/7. So I don't regret that, but that was my life. And all I can do now is just be the best person, be open and honest and accountable all the time to who I am, but never move away from your own values and beliefs.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing parting words of wisdom, really, Waverley, and a great point to wrap this up, if you're happy to. Actually, sorry, one thing absolutely is, how can our listeners connect with you and find out more about Yalari?
Toby, so if people wanted to go onto our website, which is www.yalari.org, that's our website. And if you wanted to Google that in any way, shape or form, we've got a fundraising dinner in Sydney on June the 3rd at the Ivy in Sydney. If you want to hear about what we do, I speak at corporate lunches in Sydney all around Australia. It's money, if you see something that you would like to be involved in any way, shape or form, please, give us a call. Our number is 075-665-8688.
I'll make sure that's in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Waverley,
no, thanks.
All these
Toby.
links, yeah.
But no, Toby, the most important thing is, success only comes before work is in the dictionary. They're the things along the way, and, the definition of the best job is just doing something that you love, getting paid to do it. And I'm forever grateful that, where we are as an organisation now is because so many good people believe in what we're doing, and we're all working for the same common goal of empowering and educating children. And I'm just so grateful that, if I died tomorrow, well, at least I lived a life. At least I tried to help one other person be a better person and change the course in their life. And that's all you can be. And just and I'd like to think that, and I'm very thankful for each and every day that I have on this earth, because every day above ground is a great day.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look, Waverley, thank you so much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Toby.
your time and loved hearing the stories that you share. You've obviously crafted storytelling as a great skill. So congratulations on all your success as well. And, yeah, look forward to keeping in touch and helping out wherever we can. Yeah,
no, Toby, I'd love to catch up. And when I'm in Sydney next, I'll make sure that we catch up and have a coffee or a meal together. And and thank you so very much for allowing for me to have an interview today. And all the very best to all your listeners and to all yourself. And congratulations on your achievements. And maybe I should ring you up and have a talk to you about and put it out to our Yalari children. So I'll do that favour. Okay.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Waverley.
Thanks, Toby. Thank you so very much for your time, mate.
All the best.
Have a good day. Bye-bye then.
This show is brought to you by our 33 free marketing templates. You can download them at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Now, we would love your feedback, we would love your questions, and also any guest suggestions. You can contact me on email. I am toby.jenkins@bluewiremedia.com.au, or on Twitter, I am @Toby_Jenkins. Also, if you enjoyed the show, we would love it if you could leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks so much, and see you next time.